Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. So the way the 4th chapter ended, right, was dealing with what's going to happen to the ungodly, right? So continuing on, it now deals with the righteous man, right? So it says here, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him, right? And made no account of his labors. When you go all the way back to the 2nd chapter, remember that there was mention of let us afflict him, right? And prove his meekness. So those that have afflicted the righteous man, right, which can be likened on to the believers that have remained faithful to the Lord, when the time of the Lord bringing deliverance to them, that is to the righteous, comes, they're going to stand in great boldness, right? And I think in the 12th chapter, it mentions that when men would not believe that thou art of a full power, referring to the Lord, thou makest thy glory manifest, roughly paraphrasing, and basically you make bold those that trust in you. See, so why is the righteous man going to stand in great boldness? Because all the things that he has been doing, all his labors, there's going to be a reward for it. And made no account of his labors, verse 2, when they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear. And what is it that they're going to see and be troubled with terrible fear? And shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation. Because this salvation that's coming, for the righteous, and that salvation is going to be when Yahweh Shai comes back. But that salvation is going to be looked at as strange. Let's look up the word strange in the online etymology dictionary. So strange says from elsewhere, foreign, of another country, unknown, unfamiliar, not belonging to the place where found. Foreign, alien, unusual, unfamiliar. You see, so the return of the Lord in delivering his elect is going to be foreign. This world is not used to that. They're not expecting to see the skies filled with so-called UFOs, right, and having angels and the Lord return in that fashion, in the glory. They're not used to that. So when they see it, they're going to be troubled and they're going to be afraid. But that is going to be the strangeness of the salvation of the righteous, so far beyond all that they looked for. See, so it's like when somebody says they couldn't have imagined it even in their wildest dreams. That is so far beyond all that they looked for. And they, repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit, shall say within themselves, because at that point the truth is going to be made manifest to everybody. And there's going to be that veil is going to be removed, but that's because that's the point of judgment. So it doesn't matter whether you can see the truth now or not. It doesn't change your condition or predicament. So as it says, they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves. So they're going to reason, this was he, that righteous man, right, the believer, whom we had sometimes in derision and a proverb of reproach. And, it's righteous man is generally speaking, right? But you have those that are also women and so on that believe, that will also be part of the strangeness of that salvation. But this is going to be the response or the reasoning of the ungodly, which is that this righteous man that we reproached, right, we had in derision. And let's look up the word derision. Derision, contemptuous, ridicule, mockery, right? The scriptures talk about being fools for Hamashiach's sake, because the Lord chose the base things of this world to confound the wise. So remember, the world still looks at us as base things of this world. And being that this world is run under the vibration of the ungodly, the same reasons or reasonings that the ungodly would have would influence the perspective and the minds of the people in the world. But here, when the salvation comes, they're going to realize that these people that they had in derision, mocked, reproached, right? A proverb of reproach. Those same are going to be the children of God. We fools accounted his life madness and his end to be without honor. See, so we thought the things that he did, the way that he lived to serve God was mad, right? They were wasting their life, they were wasting their time. Do something better with your life. And we didn't think that his end would be with honor. That they didn't think that anything good would come of the work that the righteous were doing. Verse 5, how is he numbered among the children of God, and his lot is among the saints? And that is because a lot of people have a misconception of the Lord, of the Most High. They don't read the scriptures, that's why. So they're wondering, but how? How is it that these people are the children of God? How are they the ones getting delivered? How are they the holy ones? When people think of holy and saints, they're thinking of somebody who doesn't eat. They just meditate in a cave, levitating with glowing eyes, right? Or they're thinking the closest would probably be some Edomite scholar, right? Who has like this white beard and this white flowy hair. Like they're imagining that, but that's not reality. Verse 6, therefore have we erred from the way of truth. So this is the moment of realization. When all the ungodly, those that have come against us, that have come against the Lord, that have come against the righteous, realize that they were on the wrong side. They were on the wrong end of things. So as it says, we wearied ourselves. When you weary yourself, you make your... Oh, Salakia, actually, verse 6. Therefore have we erred from the way of truth. Because here's the math, right? If the righteous, who the ungodly persecuted, actually had the truth, and the ungodly came against them, how does the math play out? That means that, well, if they had the truth and you were against them, then you erred from the truth. You were ultimately against the truth. See, so as they said, we have erred or erred and strayed away from the way of truth, and the light of righteousness hath not shined onto us. So the path in which they were going in was complete opposite from the actual righteous path. And you know that without a shadow of a doubt, because they persecuted those that were on the righteous path. And the sun of righteousness rose not upon us. We wearied ourselves, because what does the sun do? The sun gives light, right? But here the light, the sun to light to lighten the path of righteousness before them did not rise. We wearied ourselves in the way of wickedness. When you weary yourself, you tire yourself. Meaning that they're saying, like, we spent energy, and time and effort in doing things of wickedness and destruction, as opposed to seeking the way of righteousness. Yea, we have gone through deserts where there lay no way, but as for the way of the Lord, we have not known it. See, and so this is how they lived, right? When they come to that realization that the things we were doing was likened onto somebody rather going through a desert where there is no path than to walk in the way of the Lord. What hath pride profited us? Or what hath riches with our vaunting brought us? See, so here they are lamenting, seeing that salvation is closed onto them, seeing that destruction is opened wide, with their arms wide open onto them. The reflection is, well, what has pride, that arrogancy, what benefit did it give you? Right? All the riches, the things you gained in this world through your boasting, what did that ultimately amount to? Because you're going to lose all that in an instant. From the Edomites in their proud rulership, to the wicked of our people in their proud, arrogance and blindness, all that is going to be lost just like that. And verse 9 goes into that. All those things, right, the things that you profited in, the riches that you got, the life that you used to live, are passed away like a shadow. A shadow is there one second, and when whatever is casting a shadow moves, the shadow is gone. And as a post that hasted by. Now a post here, this isn't like a signboard. The word post in the Old English is a courier or a messenger, and they were known for being very quick, right? Because if they had to deliver a message, to multiple places, they couldn't waste time and they had to be fast. So here they're comparing their former life to a fast moving messenger, right? That quickly passes and then eventually they're out of sight. And that's how they're saying this is what it was like. This is what the life we lived and the things we had is gone just like that. As a ship that passeth over the waves of the water, which when it is gone by, the trace thereof cannot be found. When you look at a ship on water, you see the ripples as the ship is going through, right? It says, neither the pathway of the Nile in the waves. When you look here, let's look at the Nile of ship. Oops. Nile of ship in water. So where are we at? Trying to find a good example. All right, so you have the Nile, right? This part right here, and I'm trying to see if I can. Okay, I guess this is not bad. So it says here, going back to the verse, as a ship that passeth over the waves of water, which when it is gone by, the trace thereof cannot be found. When a ship is passing on water, you cannot, once it's gone, you cannot, it doesn't leave tracks. The water closes right back up, and you can't tell that anything had been there before. Right? Neither the pathway of the Nile in the waves. So this part of the ship, right? The Nile that's in the water, that's cutting through the water, you can't tell where once, let's say a ship passes by you, right? And you go by 2 hours later, you can't tell. Now, if you were in some mountains and it had snowed and an animal, passed by, you could look in the snow and look at the footprints. It leaves a trail. It leaves a trace. It's not the same here with the ship. And they're likening this to the things that they got in the world, right? The riches and the life they used to live. How quickly it is all passed away. Because when the Lord brings, remember, simultaneously with the salvation of the righteous will be the destruction of the wicked. And so, just like that, they're going to lose everything. And it's going to be like, damn, all these things you spent your life building and chasing and grinding for is gone just like that. Like a ship that passes through water, you can't even see the traces of it. You won't even see the traces or the remains of the life you used to live. It's all going to be gone. Verse 11, or as when a bird hath flown through the air, there is no token. A token is a sign of her way to be found. So when a bird flies, you watch a bird fly from point A to point B, you cannot trace there. It doesn't leave signs in the air for you to trace where it flew through. But the light air being beaten with the stroke of her wings, so as it flashed its wings, and parted with the violent noise and motion of them, is passed through, and therein afterwards no sign where she went is to be found. So her wings cut through the air, but the air closes back up again, and you can't look and see a trace or a trail or skid marks in the air of where the bird flew. Likewise, once their world and their life crumbles, you can't see any remains of it, right? Like once Esau's kingdom goes down, it's going to be burning in fire, right? His Babylon the Great is going to be what? A desolate wilderness is going to be burning, and there's going to be no trace of what this place used to be like. Las Vegas, New York, the Washington D.C., the Statue of Liberty, all that is gone. You won't even be able to tell where one thing was. And likewise, their rulership, and likewise the life that people lived, during this time, it's all going to cease. Verse 12, or like as when an arrow is shot at a mark, it parteth the air, right? It's aerodynamic. When you look at an arrow, see, cutting through air. Let's see if we can find a diagram of that. Okay. Yeah, I suppose they just, okay. Yeah. This might actually work. So if you see this, right? This is an arrow splitting another arrow. But you see how an arrow is designed, it has a sharp, pointy edge. All right, let's look up here, aerodynamic meaning. So aerodynamic, yeah, refers to the shape, design, or movement of an object that allows it to travel through air with minimal resistance. If you notice, like even with cars, there are cars where if you look at most cars, the front, the hood is smaller, right, lower than the top, right, where the seating area is, and it's designed that way on purpose. If you look at an arrow, if you look at a plane, they're all designed with where the edge, the front of it is very narrow because it allows it to be aerodynamic, right? It allows it to travel through air with minimal resistance because it's cutting through the air, right? So that's the concept of the arrowhead. That sharpness here, the analogy being used is like an arrow that's cutting through the air, right? I.e., it's aerodynamic, even though you don't really see that effect as it travels. And then the air closes back up, right? It says here, a part of the air which immediately cometh together again, so that a man cannot know where it went through. So when you look at an arrow in this shot, you can't trace where it went through in the air. You can only see its end where it struck. Okay, and then you can try to, okay, maybe the trajectory went through here, but you can't actually see it. Even so, we in like manner, as soon as we were born, began to draw to our end, and had no sign of virtue to show, but were consumed in our own wickedness. See, so they start to admit that your whole life that you have lived, right, being ungodly, was all vain. You had no sign of virtue. You were wholly given to wickedness. For the hope of the ungodly is like dust that is blown that is blown away with the wind. So it's vain, right? It doesn't even hold any weight. Like a thin froth, like a snowflake that is driven away with the storm, like as the smoke which is dispersed here and there with a tempest. A tempest is like wind or the storm. So if there's a smoke and there's a strong wind, it blows it away, and passeth away as the remembrance of a guest that tarrieth but a day. Right? You had a guest that stays for one day versus a guest that stays for 1 month. Who is more memorable? You know, usually the one who stayed for a month, if you get to know them and and have more interactions with them versus one who just stays for one day and then leaves. So here, that's what they're likening the hope of the ungodly, right? It's temporary. It holds no weight. It's vain. But the righteous live forevermore. Their reward also is with the Lord, and the care of them is with the Most High. See, the righteous, they live forevermore. That's why in the 3rd chapter it mentions their hope is full of immortality, and it says their reward also is with the Lord, because the Lord has a reward for the righteous. And the care of them, their well-being, is with the Lord. So their care is entrusted into the hands of the Lord. Therefore shall they receive a glorious kingdom and a beautiful crown from the Lord's hand. That's also in the book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 2, verse 40 on down. That actually happens. Ezra saw it. For with his right hand shall he cover them, and with his arm shall he protect them. Which, also looking at it symbolically, the right hand of the Lord, of the Heavenly Father, is symbolizes Yahushai. Like how you would say somebody is your right hand man, and that's also likened onto his arm, because the Lord is ultimately going to protect us, but the Most High himself is not literally going to physically hold you with his right hand, all right, or cover you with his arm. That's a representation of an extension of his power. He shall take to him his jealousy for complete armor. And once again, this jealousy is not, it's more like zeal. Okay. The Lord's passionate zeal for righteousness is going to cover him like complete armor, and make the creature his weapon for the revenge of his enemies. And that creature goes into basically nature, right? The Lord, like he did in ancient Egypt, which in the book of Wisdom of Solomon it's also going to go into. But the Lord is going to have basically all of nature used as a weapon, right? The weather, animals, the elements, but also the Israelites. And that's in the book of, is that Jeremiah? Thou art on the sword. Yeah, Jeremiah 51:20. Thou, referring to Israel, art my battle axe and weapons of war. For with thee will I break in pieces the nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. See, and this this thou is starting first with the Lord's elect. So, and there's more on that, but you can read that if on your own if you desire. So they're a part of the creature as well, right? That the Lord is going to use as his weapon to take revenge on his enemies. Fire, he shall put on righteousness as a breastplate. So here it's likening the Lord to a man of war, preparing to go to war with his enemies, and his traits about him as armor. All right, so he shall put on righteousness as a breastplate and true judgment instead of an helmet. So he's just gonna wear judgment like a helmet. That means he's coming with judgment, right? He's coming in the jealousy of his wrath. He's coming in righteousness. He shall take holiness for an invincible shield. He shall sever wrath, or Slakia, his severe wrath shall he sharpen for a sword. See, so the poetically speaking, right? The Lord's sword that he's going to use is going to be his wrath. For the world shall fight with him against the unwise. See, once again, going into the elements, right? Basically, all of creation will be at the Lord's disposable is going to be at his disposal to fight against the unwise, those that are destined for judgment. So the fire, the waves, the water, the elements, the judgments through different earthquakes and wild animals and sinkholes and all different types, those are all part of the elements of the world that the Lord is going to use to bring judgment upon the unwise. Then shall the right aiming thunderbolts go abroad. So this is given a visual of the day of salvation for the righteous. And along with the salvation for the righteous comes the judgment or destruction of the wicked. So in this time, the very same vehicles that are going to be delivering the righteous are also going to be destroying the wicked as well. So there goes your thunderbolts, right? Go abroad, and from the clouds. These clouds are referring to the chariots or the vehicles of the angels, which are known today as UFOs or UAPs. So these are basically the lasers and the beams of destruction that are going to come forth of them, as from a well-drawn bow. So a well-drawn bow is a bow that you've fully drawn, and the more you pull back that string, and then you release it, you build tension right in it, and then when you release it, it's more forceful, right? So the arrows move faster and they're more lethal. So when these chariots are letting off those thunderbolts and those laser beams, and it's when you go into Second Esdras, which I'll get in a second, it describes that, right? When Yahushai's chariot releases that destructive beam, it's going to be like flame mixed with tempest. It says here, shall they fly to the mark? So they're going to be hitting their targets. But also at the same time, you're going to have, as it says, and hailstones full of wrath shall be cast out as of a stone bow. And these hailstones are referring to the nuclear missiles, right? They're huge and they're likened onto giant hailstones. But these are going to be cast forth out of a stone bow, which represents, the means by which they're shot off, whether it's through, submarines, whether it's through missile silos, that's representing the bow. And the water of the sea shall rage against them, and the floods shall cruelly drown them. See, once again, going into the world, fighting with the Lord, right? Meaning alongside with him against the unwise. So you're going to have missiles flying, hitting different parts of the world. You're going to have the lasers of the chariots destroying people. And as those missiles hit, the book of Revelation also goes into this, right? You're going to have it hitting certain parts, some in the sea, some on the land. And what's that going to cause? That's going to cause the waters to rise, right? Those explosions is going to cause tidal waves, tsunamis, floods. Yea, a mighty wind shall stand up against them, and like a storm shall blow them away. And that wind is representing destruction. Thus iniquity shall lay waste the whole earth. See, so thus, through the actions of iniquity, destruction is going to come upon the earth. But it doesn't mean the whole earth is going to be destroyed. It just means judgment is going to come upon it. And ill dealing shall overthrow the thrones of the mighty. See, through ill dealings, the thrones of the mighty are going to be overthrown in this judgment. And I mentioned Second Ezra, so I'm going to go there very briefly or very quickly. Second Ezra, the 13th chapter, concerning the thunderbolts. We'll just give this a second to load. Okay. You know what? I'll just pull it up here on my phone while it does that. So this is Second Ezra chapter 13, verse let's see. Okay, there you go. No, nope, you don't want to behave. Cool. I'll read it from my phone here. So Second Ezra 13 and verse 10, it says, "But only I saw as it," and this is just getting straight to the point. Prior to this, Ezra has seen in the vision the return of Yahushai, him and his chariot, the armies of the world gathering to fight against him. And he's saying Yahushai didn't panic. He didn't lift up any instruments of war, but he basically gave out a command, and out of the mouth of his chariot came forth this blast. So it says, "But only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, as it had been, a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath," right? And so the actual areas where those are coming from is his chariot. "And cast out of his tongue out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests." See, going into your thunderbolts being mixed with fire here. "And they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude." So at one point where you had a whole large army that you couldn't number, nothing was to be perceived. Once that beam hit them, you couldn't see anything, but only dust and smell of smoke. So they were eviscerated. When I saw this, I was afraid. All right, who wouldn't? So that brings us to the end of the book of Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Bracha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.